Hello, fellow TGC forum dwellers. This is Yodaman Jer. As many of you are probably aware, and if you're not aware, you're about to be aware, I have been trying to figure out the best way to do an undo-redo list system for something like a tile map editor. How this works is that you've got a custom user-defined type, which will store the action metadata of whatever action you just took. So let's say that you place a tile, it will record that as an integer, which is actually going to be defined up here in this constant file, which only has a couple of things in it right now. You've also got the action name, which again is in the constant file, and it will actually, show in a string what has taken place, and that can be used to print out into a history list like Photoshop or GIMP might use. You've also got a tile type, which will be used to determine what kind of tile was placed. The tile ID variable, which stores the ID number, of course, the name so that the program will know what image to load back in, the position variables, of course, which are also important, and then the tile layer so that it will know what layer to actually draw the tile on. And then for both lists, the undo list and the redo list, you just declare an array as the metadata list, like this, and then to make it infinite, you just leave the brackets empty. I'm also using a global sprite ID variable so that I can use that to store the tile ID number, like in here. This is really messy. I'm probably just going to end up rewriting a lot of it because I can already think of a few different ways to do things a little bit better. But basically, this is what it looks like right now. It's just a completely black screen, and you click to place a tile, and you can pretty much place them wherever you want. One thing I have to figure out is a way to detect if a tile is already in a spot, because right now, if I just come over here and click a few times, it's going to place a tile in that same spot over and over and over again. And when I hit undo, it won't look like it's doing anything until I get to the last tile. But, as I'm doing undo, you can actually see that it's undoing what I did. And if I redo, it's redoing exactly what I did. How it works is that when you're undoing something, it is actually calling the add to redo list function, and it's transferring anything from the current element of the undo list into a new element of the redo list, and that's how it's able to do everything in the same order over and over and over again. When you do an action, it will check to see if it is a new action, which that is a function that I had to write so that the redo list didn't get all confused. Basically what happens is if you're undoing up to a certain point and you want to do a new action, it will check and see if the undo action list is greater than nothing, basically. And then it will completely erase the redo action list so that when you actually try to redo beyond the point that you changed something, it won't do it. If it did, you'd get all kinds of this sprite already exists errors and many, many other ones. But yeah, so it checks for a new action, and then it will, that sprite ID variable up here is used to call a find free sprite function, which is probably not the most efficient way to do this. I really wish there was something like E&M's old find free object command. I'm sure it works basically the same way, but basically what this does is it will just start a variable at sprite index 0, and then while a sprite exists with that number, it will increase the number until it finds one that doesn't exist, and then it will return that, and then that's what I use to create the sprite. I'm using position by offset so that you can actually place it where the cursor is pointing, and then once all those actions are done, it's added to the undo list. This is simply for readability. It's that constant again. It's showing the action that just took place was that a tile was placed, and then that's what's used to undo or redo. So let's say you want to undo the last action that you did, so that's this function right here. It will find the last index, it will determine what the last action type was, and then using a select statement, you can see that right here, since it's number 1, it will get the sprite ID and then delete that sprite. It will copy the information into the redo list, and then it will remove the last element of the undo array. And since it's copying into the redo list, it's not technically lost information. And then when you're redoing an action, it's exactly the opposite. You get the last index of the redo list, you see what the last action was, and then I read what that ID should be, and then I create the sprite, then I set it, and then I position it where it should be, which again uses those handy variables. And then it adds to the undo list again, and then that's a snap to grid function. I only got like 4 hours of sleep last night, so if my words are confusing, that's why. But yeah, so it just kind of works kind of how you would expect. If anybody has any better ideas on how to go about something, I am more than willing to listen. In the meantime, I think I pretty much covered everything in here. I think. So yeah, hopefully this will be useful to somebody.